Peter Frampton had to convince this guy that he was not going to get the FBI involved. Welcome back to Ethan's Guitar Room. My name is Ethan. This is my guitar room. And this is going to be story time all about Peter Frampton's guitar. Some of you may be familiar with this story, but there are some details that I learned when researching for this that I had not heard before. If you stick around, this will be the entire story with as much detail as I could find. The story starts in 1970 in San Francisco. Peter Frampton was playing with his band Humble Pie at the Fillmore West. He had recently traded a 1962 Gibson SG for an ES335. Their first night of shows in San Francisco, he was having trouble with the semi-hollow guitar. Every time he would turn up for a solo, his guitar would feed back, something he never had to deal with the solid body of the SG. A friend of his named Mark Mariana offered to let him borrow a Les Paul for the remaining shows on this leg of their tour. And at this point, Frampton actually wasn't a fan of Les Pauls, but due to his desperate situation, he agreed to use it. And this Les Paul was a 1954 Black Beauty that had been modified to look more like a 57 Les Paul Custom. According to Frampton, it was love at first sight, and he used that guitar for the rest of this leg of shows. When it was all over, he went back to his friend Mark to return the guitar and asked if he would be willing to sell it. Mark told him, "No, I want you to just have the guitar." Over the next decade, the Les Paul would be Frampton's #1 guitar. And it would be this same guitar that was used on the album cover for Frampton Comes Alive, which is still widely recognized as a great live album among guitar players. Fast forward to 1980, Frampton and his band are playing some shows in South America. During a day off, after playing a show in Venezuela, Frampton and the band get on a plane and fly ahead to Panama for their next show. The band's gear would be loaded onto a separate plane and would follow them there. Except that plane never made it. The plane full of the band's gear crashed on takeoff. It killed the crew, and because it was full of fuel, it burned for hours. At this point, everyone assumed that all of their gear had gone up in flames with the airplane. 31 years later, in 2011, Frampton received an email explaining that a guitar had been taken to a luthier on the island of Curacao off the coast of Venezuela. The luthier immediately recognized the guitar and photographed every inch of it to include inside the pickup cavities. The photos were sent to Peter Frampton, and he was able to identify the guitar as his based on his experience tearing the pickups out when he had it. One other detail, the luthier who recognized the guitar was also a customs inspector. That will come up again later. So what actually happened to this Les Paul in 1980? One of the first people to arrive on the scene of the airplane crash had actually stolen 4 guitars. A 63 P-Bass, a 55 Strat, a white Les Paul, and the Black Beauty. And he took them out and sold them. I have no idea what happened to the rest of those guitars, but the Black Les Paul was purchased by somebody who wanted to learn how to play. This guy didn't stick with it, so the guitar ended up sitting in his closet for many years. Until one day, his son decided that he wanted to learn how to play, so he grabbed the guitar out of the closet and recognized that it was in terrible condition and took it to the luthier who identified it. This isn't a simple story with a happy ending just yet. Quick interruption before we get back to the story. If you enjoy this kind of video, please do me a favor and subscribe. It costs you nothing, but it helps me out. The kid who brought the guitar in for repair didn't actually want to sell it. It actually took them 18 months to convince him to let the luthier buy it. Now, because the luthier was a customs inspector, he was kind of nervous about getting his hands on a stolen guitar. Through his government connections, he spoke to the Minister of Tourism for Curacao and worked out some arrangement where the government actually bought the guitar from this kid for $5,000. So the government paid for it, and the luthier took possession of it, but the guitar wasn't in Frampton's hands yet. The luthier was still nervous about having a guitar that he knew was stolen, but he wanted to get it back to Frampton. Peter Frampton had to convince this guy that if they were going to meet up to exchange the guitar, he was not going to get the FBI involved. Eventually, they arranged to meet up in Nashville, where the guitar was handed over to Frampton. He knew immediately that it was his guitar, but it was in pretty rough shape. So he had it restored by the Gibson Custom Shop, but he only really had it restored to the point of making it playable again. He wanted the guitar to keep some of the marks that were on it from surviving the fire and all the years that it had been through. After all of that, Frampton finally had his guitar back and started taking it on the road with him again. According to Peter Frampton, he plays that guitar at every show. Because this guitar had survived a fiery plane crash, was presumed burned up and gone forever, and eventually made its way back to Peter Frampton, it has been known as Phenix ever since. This is undoubtedly one of the most famous guitars on the planet. Gibson has done a few runs in the past where they have reproduced it, and they currently sell a reproduction of the Phenix, just without all the burn marks. There you have it. That is the full story of Peter Frampton's Les Paul. If you like this video, do me a favor and subscribe. And if you would like to support this kind of content, you can do that by going over to my channel and click the join button where you can join my YouTube community. Anyways, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.